Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Curious Realms continuing coverage of PsiGames 2025 right here in Charlottesville, Virginia. Welcome to the show. Jason King from the Monroe Institute. How are you doing today?
I am wonderful. How are you?
Doing great. First off, I want to thank the Monroe Institute for everything that they have done over the last many, many decades when it comes to the work of binaural beats, when it comes to the work of brainwave entrainment. That is something that truly peaked and changed my life many, many years ago. And to the point where now, even as a musician, I make binaural beat therapy music for experiencers of alien contact, things like that, to help release PTSD. It really is a life-changing thing. How did you come to work at the Monroe Institute to begin with, Jason?
It's a funny story for me. It's a funny story. We are here in Charlottesville, Virginia. We're on the downtown mall of Charlottesville, Virginia. Many, many years ago, I was the house manager for a venue here in town called the Paramount Theater.
Oh, okay.
About halfway down the mall, you'll see it. Yeah. So for 2.5, 3 years, I was house manager there. And when we had big shows, we would hire a second stage monitor, a second sound guy.
Yep.
Well, that gentleman worked at Monroe.
Oh, wow.
And he still works at Hemi Sync today. His name's Kevin Cow. He's a beautiful music producer and an engineer, and he's just one of the greatest pair of ears I've ever heard. And after we would load out bands, we would have these really beautiful, heavy conversations. Yeah. Very deep conversations. And Kevin would blow my mind, And I think he liked that I would follow along or ask thoughtful questions or knew what he was talking about.
Sure.
And so he's like, Jason, come down to Monroe. You'd really love it. It's right up your alley. It's perfect for you, blah, blah, blah. And this was probably 15 years ago or so.
Wow.
And I remember this so clear. I pull up my phone, I pull up the Monroe Institute, and I was like, man, that's like 45 minutes away from here. I was like, I don't think I'm going down there, Right?
Yeah.
I was Charlottesville forever, and didn't really feel like I needed to leave Charlottesville for anything. And so naive, right? But it piqued my interest,
Sure.
And I started to follow Monroe on all the socials and kind of keep, up to date on what was going on and what they do. And I loved it. And then, years later, when, the whole blessing and curse of COVID happened, right? The blessing being that we all had time to kind of rethink our lives.
Yep.
And I did. And I did what everybody else did. I rethought my life.
Yeah.
At that time, I was working in a different section of the music industry, and I was on the road a lot. I was traveling a lot.
Yep.
And I was tired of it, and I wanted to change. And I knew I wanted a change that was going to benefit me in ways beyond a paycheck. Right?
Yeah.
I wanted to learn something every single day.
Quality of life.
Community, something that was self-serving for myself, plus a paycheck, And
Sure.
So I decided that, pulled up Indeed, and like 5 minutes before I did, Monroe posted a job. And so I actually wrote a cover letter. I didn't just fire one off, but I wrote one for it. And then 5 minutes after they received it, they wrote me back and wanted to meet me. Zoom call, whatever. And I think the fact that I was willing to drive down there and meet them in person.
You were willing to leave.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so, the world was scared, right? And I was kind of over hibernating inside, and I wanted human contact again. And so I think that it may have played to my advantage a little bit.
It pushed you to beyond your boundary of your localized area.
Right. And I was craving it. Human contact again.
Yep.
And I'm sure that they didn't put some barometer on me, well, here's the test. If he comes down, I'm sure they didn't do that.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that they were happy that I did, and I did. And, fell in love with Cheryl right away. I met with Alan Evans right away. I guess they liked me enough to give me the offer. Yeah. And I got hired on as a program manager, but quickly morphed into so many more things. Yeah. And now, like you said, I'm a jack of all trades there today.
Yeah. And, you bring up an important point that we talk about on this show all the time outside of the paranormal, and that is holistic living. The idea of you can be happy and have a job.
Yeah.
It can exist.
Yes.
It can work.
Yes.
And if it's not working for you, give a stab at something else.
That's right.
You know, because you'd be amazed. And
well, to take that one step further, you know, this work that we do, especially at Monroe, but the work that everybody in this room is doing.
That's right.
That self sort of, preservation work, that self-improvement work, trying to be better than you were, better today than you were yesterday. You know, along that way, you go through things. You know, you bring up old traumas.
Absolutely.
Life is heavy.
Yep.
And people tend to live in that heavy space.
They do.
Right? But the purpose of this earth life is to have fun, right? To be a human, right? To have the human experience, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that gets overlooked a lot, right?
Yeah.
So we concentrate so much on that heavy self-improvement, which is, of course, important.
Sure.
We all have to do it. But people live there.
Yeah.
And you have to remember to have fun sometimes. Let loose, dance, you know, enjoy a concert, have a fun night out of doing nothing but just being a human.
Yeah. And, it's interesting that you bring up the concert. I am an audiovisual engineer. I do road work and things like that. And COVID was actually a point where I provide labor locally of people like me. And it became the fact of I would rather do that and be with my family and do the projects like making binaural beat music, things like that to help people than to actively be on the road pushing a case anymore.
I know.
And it's really funny because, that's something that for half my life I have defined myself as.
It's great when you're young.
Oh, yeah.
But as I got older,
I ain't going to be able to.
It wasn't for me.
I tell people all the time, I am the best pointer you will find on site.
That's right.
I'm not the dude you want
that
in your
case
truck anymore.
Should go there.
I'm not the dude you want in your truck anymore because I cannot hop up and down those 3 layers of stuff the way I used to with that kind of nimble attitude.
This is the same realization I had.
But my brain is nimble.
Right.
And, that brings us really to the work of the Monroe Institute. The idea of, because I say it all the time, number one on site, audio, lighting, you're both frequencies. Why are you fighting?
Right. Absolutely.
The tone you're making is the color he's making. Let's get together and make a show.
Agreed.
And the idea of being able to change the frequency, not just of light or sound, but being able to change the frequency of your thought, being able to change the way your brain processes data, and even the way that you initially begin to take in data. Begins with your brain waves. It begins with how you build that filter to begin with, and if you even have a filter.
Sure.
So when it comes to binaural beats, that really is a great way to begin to unlock some of these things, to start processing traumas without having to psychologically revisit that moment. Things like that.
Absolutely. And then when you get into that, when you're trying to get something into changing trauma, sorry, Raphael was making faces at me.
Absolutely. Everybody does it once to someone.
It. It's great. But to your point, right?
Yeah.
And what we kind of learn a little bit at Monroe is this idea of reframing trauma, which is what you just mentioned. And so this isn't exactly, I'll give you a quick little analogy. It's not
just a primer.
It's not the greatest analogy in the world, but it's one I use, and it's one people can kind of understand, right? So when you talk about the main, frequency bands that we talk, delta, theta, alpha, beta, gamma, I think of it like this, like where does that live in the body, right? This isn't exactly true.
Sure.
But again, close enough. So delta, right? It's right here. That's your gut. That's the automatic stuff. That's your instinct. It's all your breathing is in delta. Your flickering of your eyes is in delta. When you move up into theta, you're really kind of moving into your heart space, right?
Yeah.
So you're getting into emotional content, feeling through emotions, and so on. When you move into alpha, you start moving into your actual 5 physical senses: your eyesight, your ears, your mouth, your taste, your voice. But it's also kind of like your real voice, who you really are. Is kind of in the alpha, right? Your logical thinking is your beta. Gamma is the outside, the field, and you're connecting to it in that way through gamma. Now, when it comes to trauma, right, how I think about this is, first thing, you have to get down low.
Yeah.
You get down into that delta, right? That's where it's living.
Yeah.
It's in that deep unconscious, right?
Yeah.
You have to kind of bring it up, and you feel it. You have to, because you have to feel to heal, right? So you feel, what it is. you bring it into your sensory awareness, and you feel in that way, right?
Yeah.
By then, your logical brain can kind of, process it.
Start to make sense of it.
Correct. And perhaps reframe it in a way without that emotion.
Yeah.
You just process that, right?
Yeah.
And then, when you kind of connect to the field and gamma kind of comes, it just sort of washes things away. You just sort of wash that stuff away. You're not really getting rid of it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But what you're doing is you're reframing it, right? So that trauma that produced emotional, emotional result, you can still have it within you without that emotion, without the sadness, without the hurt, and so on. And there are, many people, who are into healing or looking to heal, look in lots of different directions to do that. The plant medicine thing is one, right?
Yeah.
And it's very powerful.
It is. It is. I've been there.
And I'm not anti anything. I'm very pro everything.
Yeah.
And I think the plant medicine, in my experience, and I only talk in my experience.
Absolutely.
I think it does a great job of highlighting where the trauma lives, what the trauma is. It gives you a beautiful window to see what life looks like without carrying that trauma, right? You can experience life in those several hours of not feeling all that. I'm not sure it heals much beyond that. The only thing that I'm, in my experience, and again, just me, is in meditation.
Sure.
It's going in and getting quiet and processing in that way.
Yeah.
Again, the plant medicine stuff, fantastic. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. It's helped so many people. But without that extra work.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you're doing much.
Well, and you bring up a great point there. Like I've been through the medicine.
Yeah.
And I call him my shaman because he sat with me on phone calls for a month and a half.
Good.
2 months.
Good.
Before we did it, because I was on SSRIs. I was on daily medication for my anxiety, things like that. And he was like, "Hey, we're going to need to take you off that for this to happen."
Okay, good. Well, it sounds like he had some.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he was responsible.
Full medical basis.
They're not
everything.
all responsible.
No, they are
You got a
not.
good one.
No, they are not. Everybody, and I'm going to look right at the camera when I say that they are not. There's
Me
a
too.
lot of snake oil salesmen out there with this stuff, even when it comes to binaural beats.
Correct.
And I had a guy, like, whenever I released, it was actually my therapy album for abductees that I released last year. I put it up, made a social media ad, and somebody attacked the ad. Immediately, they were like, "This is a hustle to get people," and there were like 4 different people from the targeted individual community that came on and were like, "Chris's work is not that. I have Chris's CD for targeted individuals.
Well, good.
I can't tell you how much he has helped me."
Good.
And it was one of those like, "Oh, wow, what a beautiful moment for the community to step up in my defense on social media." Because, like even with my music, somebody was calling me a snake oil salesman. And I'm like, "Hey, I'm just telling you that this may work. It may not work for you. I don't know.
But this is what I like, and I'm going to put this out there."
Because I've definitely done binaural beat sessions that worked for me, and the dude right behind me, it did nothing for it.
That's true. That happens at Monroe, actually, as well.
And there's one phenomena that I talk about with it, because I've got a very good friend of mine who I gave a copy to for his wife. Not that one, but a different album. And he was like, "She can't listen to it. She can't listen to it. She describes it like getting a wet willy in her brain."
Really? Okay.
Because there is that cadre of people that the dual signals, left and right, affects the brain in a different way. It can make you kind of uncomfortable.
Sure.
Whether you're hearing it or not.
Sure.
So it was interesting to actively run across one of those people that was that 5 to 8% anomaly where it's like, it kind of bugs them when they listen to it.
And that's really...
And it's interesting to even see that.
The greatest thing about Monroe, honestly, is go find out for yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, Bob Monroe, and still today, we don't have any sort of dogma whatsoever.
Nope.
We have tools and tricks that, seem to be pretty effective for most people.
Yeah.
But it's a good thing to talk about, too, because what was developed on Bob's experiences, right?
Yeah.
And what he found out for himself.
Yep.
And you might find out something different for yourself.
Yeah, no different than the plant medicine.
Exactly.
Like, I did not see clockwork elves.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Mine was an experience of every time, because it was just me and the shaman. It ended up being. And he played the songs all night, things like that. Every time I would want to get up and tell him how the song transformed me, it was like a hand grabbed my chest and pushed me down, and I heard, shh. Every time. It was so wild. Because it was like, it was be here, be present.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be losing ego, so is he.
Yeah.
Be here, be present. But even the idea that, because I was just having the conversation with Jimmy Church a while ago about the fact that he had an experience with somebody who does sound healing, things like that, with pyramids, and she's like, I got into her pyramid, and she started pumping these frequencies. And I went somewhere, man. Mm-hmm. Like, I was in another place. Mm-hmm. So it's like, you can get the full DMT experience from binaural beats. You can get every bit of every one of those experiences literally just with brain waves. You need no chemical alteration. You need no additional probiotic in your body to absorb the DMT or anything like that. Your brain creates DMT.
You just need to allow.
Yeah, you need to allow that consent there and that space for it to happen.
And surrender into it.
Yeah. The surrender, I think, is an important part. Very because that is the word consent is what we use regularly on this show, whether it's paranormal, what have you. Even with things like Bledsoe tonight, you are consenting into an experience. And if you don't consent, that can not jibe with other people's consent, and it may interrupt the experience utterly and entirely. And at the same token, the example I give is paranormal investigators. If you are consenting into a system of, let me obsess over this investigation before I go, let me not just have a rote checklist of gear. Yep, I got my camera, got my recorder, got my car, all that stuff, and then leaving it. If you're deep diving into what those experiences are, reading books about it before you go, watching videos, watching movies, you are actively charging that atmosphere before you ever step foot into it.
Absolutely.
You're changing not only that, but your entire frequency of thought about what you're about to go investigate. So, like, you may well be manipulating that space and manifesting that, or you may just be polishing the filter through which you're going to look at all your data from your experiment.
Absolutely.
So either way, are you really approaching that from the point of science? And are you allowing for that experience to just happen, and for you to be there, and for you to just be a carrier wave, nothing more? Like, you're the 20 hertz wave here, you aren't theta. You're just the carrier wave.
The idea of the filter right, is a very interesting one.
It is.
And it's one that I talk about a lot at Monroe. And the idea of binaural beats or the
even
modern
pure
day
tone
version.
Therapy. Even pure tone. We got singing bowls over there.
Absolutely. Which are kind of binaural in a way, right?
They do.
They have two tones that come out.
I explain the difference of that. One is like going to the spa. The other is like taking your brain to the gym. They're both gonna have the same thing. They're both gonna have the same ultimate effect, but this is teaching your brain to get the frequencies when it needs it, not just respond when heard.
But I say the filter and the brain and the mind and what's working and how it works is interesting. And I'm not sure if anybody really has a true understanding of how it works. I have a theory for myself.
Sure.
My theory is, so it's easy to think about top down. Change your brain waves, change everything else. Listen to this, your brain will entrain to that and change the relationship of your frequencies, changing everything else within your body. Maybe that's exactly how it works. Or perhaps it's the other way around. Maybe consciousness really lives here. Maybe we process it and filter it here. But to change this, you change this. Right? So expanding from here, from your heart space, or what Bob Monroe would call his energy body, your energy body, your emotional body, getting into your emotional spaces, I think will change your brain waves, changing the filter and so on. But we concentrate so much on the brain, right? And I think it's because we can measure that.
Yeah.
You know, we can actually take measurements of that, see changes, see improvements, see the relationships change. But is it in the brain, or is it someplace else? Is it the cause here and the effect is there, or the other way around?
The prime example would be me having to get off my SSRIs to go do ayahuasca. Because the serotonin isn't made in my brain. It's made in my gut. Serotonin is produced in your gut. So if you're eating things that destroy serotonin, you're not going to be a happy dude to begin with.
And we are this holistic system.
We are.
And that gets easily forgotten about. Because we concentrate on one element and not the whole. And so, I think about this a lot at Monroe. We have this beautiful landscape outside. We're outside all the time. We have this beautiful crystal that's out in the field.
I know.
We sit by it all the time. It's great. It's so good. But if you and I were out there right now, and we were sitting just outside here, and a brown blob goes across the sky, you might say, "Oh, did you see that bird?" Well, no, I didn't, and neither did you. You saw a brown blob, right? Your brain filled in the gaps.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
The filtered your reality, right? Saying that, oh, that must be a bird, and it probably is. Chances are it was. But you didn't really see that. You're not processing reality fast enough.
That's it.
So you fill in all these gaps, and you're doing that constantly.
We talk about that regularly on the show in relation to the phenomenon of pareidolia. The idea that, I saw this thing. It's out beyond the trees and stuff like that. What was it beyond the trees, or did your brain give you a pattern of recognition that you would be comfortable with? The same way that we see Grandpa's face in the cloud or something like that. Our brains are pattern machines. They crave those patterns. They look for those patterns. That is where we rest. One of the things I talked about this morning, and even on the show regularly, is the fact that we go through almost 3/4 of our day in a state of rote hypnosis. We react to things. Aside from that, like by the time you've learned to walk, you no longer think, let me get up and be ambulatory and go get a Coke from the fridge. You just think, I'm thirsty, and your body moves. Your body goes. Your body doesn't think about breathing. If you drive in traffic every day, you're rarely thinking about how many exits am I away from work.
Well, and
frequently you'll wake up and be like, oh crap, there's my exit.
Right. Well, and to that point, I think, and this is another beautiful thing of Monroe. I think, what's the purpose of all of this? Right? The purpose of all this is to get present, to be present, to live in the present moment. Most of the time, beta-driven humans, are taking every experience of their past, and they're trying to predict the next few moments of their future. And they're not really here, not really now.
Beautiful.
Right?
Beautiful.
But if you think about the best memories of your life, right? Your first kiss, your child being born, the best concert you ever went to.
You were nowhere but there.
Correct.
You were nowhere but there.
You were living right then. That's your favorite memory. And so at Monroe, that's really, or not just Monroe, but the idea of meditation is to kind of live in that place, right? To live in a present sort of space, to reduce the filter, perhaps changing your spectrum of reality away from the brain, getting it into your emotional space, radiating from there. And if you radiate from here, perhaps you're living in a truer sense of reality. Right? Yeah, we have this poster at Monroe. That was every frequency known to man at the time the poster was printed. It was like in the 60s or 70s. It's very old. But this wide range of, the ultraviolet stuff and the gamma stuff. And
the 3 nanometers that we see in here?
The visible light is right there. So we know all of this exists. And we are living in reality that's this narrow, right? So that's what I'm saying. So the filter keeps you here. But if you radiate someplace else, you're open to all that is.
Well, and we already are, is the thing. Like our brain is a transceiver living inside of a resonant chamber. Hands down, we are sending and receiving all the time. The question is whether or not you are consciously processing that data. That's the only difference.
And can you process it fast enough for true reality?
Well, you can't. That's why we dream. We dream because, we've got to be able to process that moment somehow, but we were just reacting and trying to stay upright. So we're going to process that emotion later when we can really focus on that.
Store
but
it there for now.
Right now we're moving forward. 8 hours from now, we're going to get into that in a dream. and we're going to process it
and
some
it's
more.
going to get weird.
It's going to get weird. but you have to let it get weird is the thing. And that's kind of something that I tell everybody about remote viewing, is that as opposed to anything else that I investigate, anything else that I talk about on my show, it is the one parapsychological science that began in the lab.
Yeah.
Began in the lab. Like, I don't care what anybody say. It began in a lab from actual lab scientists. From a scientist saying, what happens when we go home and think about our experiment?
Right.
That's a noodle scratcher to begin with.
Right.
You know, just the idea of sitting in traffic, if you think that I leave my iron on long enough, you may burn your apartment down because you turned the iron on because you're thinking about it so long.
That's right.
And that's a fascinating concept to think about. Even the idea that now, like right now as we speak, Rizwan Virak is in there talking about the holographic universe and about the fact that we are an agreed upon illusion.
Right.
The term of phrase I use is we are conscious frequency.
I like that.
We are conscious frequency.
Yeah.
Every one of us is a note that makes a chord in the universe.
That's right.
Because all that happens, we're 90% empty space by science, held together by a quantum field.
Yeah.
I am sharing an electron shell with my brother in Texas right now by all 9th grade science that I made an A in. So that means I'm not even here, man. We have like agreed to be here at this moment in this time, and time doesn't even exist.
That's
Ask any physicist.
It's all
like that is an equation. You take time to Mars, and it's totally different.
Correct.
Totally
it is
different.
Man-made. Absolutely.
So yeah, this whole thing is kind of funky to even think about. The fact that are we even here, and if that's a fact, that means we could change all of this around us at any time as soon as we decide to have the consent to do it.
That's right.
You know, and that's a beautiful and amazing thing. And once again, the idea that the Monroe Institute has been working on this stuff, working on literally how can we change and recognize consciousness itself? How can we change the way we relate to it? Yeah. And how can we change just the global understanding of consciousness and the shift that's literally happening right now?
Wanting to find out who we really are.
Yeah. And the point I bring up in my presentation that I did today was quantum entanglement. Mm-hmm. Like, it changed everything. Mm-hmm. Not just the idea, because that's been there since Einstein's spooky action at a distance.
Sure.
But when that image came out a few years ago, that is a literal yin-yang of two entangled atoms.
Okay, I'm not familiar, but
I'll show it to you in a minute, and it'll blow your mind.
I can visualize
because the actual image of two entangled atoms is a yin-yang.
Yeah,
it's a yin-yang.
Yeah,
and it's a frequency concept that we've been talking about for thousands of years on this planet. That's been put into metaphysical, put into all kinds of things, and it's like there's physics right there in action.
Isn't it amazing that like things like that, right? The two atoms forming together is a yin-yang. But at some point in human development, somebody identified the yin-yang as a symbol. That's very important, right?
And an important philosophic concept to get, that inside of each one of us, whether you're white or black, is a piece of white or black, is a part of the other side. You cannot exist without it.
Yes, because they're really one.
Yeah.
The two is the one.
Well, because it's all one.
It's all one.
It's all one. You know, the question is whether or not you are vibrating in syncopation or in entropy. Mm-hmm. Which way are you vibrating? You know, so
it does fascinate me in a big way how in human development we have an exercise that we use.
Okay,
and we took the first 50,000 strands of shared DNA, and you can translate that into frequency sound, right?
Yeah.
And so we took these things, ran it through a processor, and it came out with these interesting sounds. This beautiful sort of symphony that sounds very strange, but also very pleasing at the same time. It sounds strange because when you break it down, it's a 22-note scale, right? And not the 12-note scale that we're used to here in the Western world, right? But a 22-note scale. Well, classic Indian music is a 22-note scale.
Yeah.
This cannot be an accident.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
This is what fascinates me, that somehow, without modern scientific studying technology or the modern conveniences that we have, they were able to determine that.
Yeah.
And it's within their own knowing. It's their own searching, their own getting quiet, their own experimenting, but finding the correct answers.
Yeah.
That is so beautiful to me.
And, one of the examples I give on my show regularly is the Rosslyn Motet.
Okay.
From Rosslyn Chapel.
Yeah.
It's a piece of music that was written all over Rosslyn Chapel. If
Yeah.
you look on the top of the columns, there are cymatic patterns.
Okay.
There's different rosé patterns that are literally cymatic tones.
Yeah.
And this gentleman took that and wrote a piece called the Rosslyn Motet.
Beautiful.
That is a piece of music written from the scale.
Based on
presented,
the cymatic patterns.
Based on the scale
Beautiful.
of the cymatic patterns in there. Now, this was medieval times, my man.
Yeah. How do they have a cymatic machine? How are they measuring these patterns?
How do they know about cymatics? How do they know what this frequency
and
looks
how
like?
to make a song out of it, or what they look like?
To
That's
even
amazing.
encode that into a building
that's
to begin
amazing.
with, to even have musical notes represented by a physical image, is remarkable in its encoding to begin with.
And the fact that they're correct, is even more remarkable.
Exactly.
I can make up a nice design.
Exactly.
Doesn't mean it's correct.
Yeah. So it's interesting to see that, and interesting to see that. Like I've said it on my show regularly, I don't think we needed aliens to build the pyramids. We had Archimedes. We had all kinds of, like, throughout the history of mankind, there has been the professor, the dude that if you stuck him on an island with a coconut, he will make a machine.
I love that
out
you
of
said
that coconut.
I feel like that's a. We get so caught up sometimes in giving credit
that we are the penultimate.
But we're pretty cool. Humans are pretty cool.
Yeah.
We can build some cool stuff.
We're smart, and we've forgotten ourselves numerous times over.
Saying.
Numerous times over.
Yeah.
Like I'm Cajun. My language is almost dead.
Yeah.
Like my people's language is almost gone.
Yeah.
One generation.
Yeah.
That's all it takes to forget it.
Yeah.
So it's not like it takes tens of thousands of years for a language to be forgotten.
Yeah, just a few generations.
Takes one generation, like 18, 20 years. That's it. That's all it takes.
So just imagine what we've lost.
Yeah.
Through generations.
Times and times and times over. This concept of, once again, musicality and frequencies. And you start looking at places like Great Pyramid of Giza. You start looking at places like Malta, the islands of Malta, where
sound chamber,
the serapeum is and stuff, where it's like this chamber resonates at a specific frequency when you sing in it.
Yes.
To literally bring you to a point, much like the Monroe Institute work, where it's like, no, we can give you the DMT experience sans the ayahuasca.
Yeah.
We can hit those points. You can do all those things with your mind, with literally sound and frequencies
and intention.
Intention. Because I still think that very much like any hypnosis, there is that front end. There is that point of consent. Like, you have to be okay with experiencing it.
And perhaps on a level, engage with it.
Yeah.
That's the other thing.
Yes.
Sometimes people think you just put headphones on and the frequencies take you away and do what they're going to do.
Yeah.
I wish it was that simple.
Yeah.
I do. So I think put headphones on. Step one, relax the body. That's a very important detail. You have to be relaxed. But then you kind of engage with it a little bit. You have an intention for something to happen.
Yeah.
Right? You seek for that. You want for that to happen. And then eventually something does.
Yeah.
Right? Getting quiet, all that. So I think when it comes to binaural beats or Monroe sound science, which is different than binaural beats.
Yes, it is.
And we can talk about that if you'd like. But I think, how does it work, right? I think it works in the same way that, breath work, counting mala beads, chanting, mantras.
A rosary.
Right.
Yeah.
You're taking your brain and you're just sort of occupying it with something mindlessness, right? And by doing that, you're allowing something to happen. And when you allow something to happen, it might just happen.
Well, yeah. I mean, you're definitely putting a point of release on yourself at that point.
Yes.
The idea of I am surrendering to this moment in this, and this is what I'm trying to attain. You know?
And you just said the magic word surrender.
Yeah.
It's another big part of it.
It's hugely
surrendering
important.
to the experience.
Yeah. You and even when it comes to the ayahuasca, that is something that like you cannot fight that.
That's a forced
You cannot
surrender.
fight that.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and literally that's what the shamans call it, is the force. That like the vomiting and the purging, that is the name that they give it, because it's a force that's trying to make you better. It's getting rid of this stuff because you don't need it in your body anymore. Let that happen.
Yes.
Surrender. Get rid of your ego and be okay with puking in front of people.
Yes.
You know, because there is that release. There is that moment where you have to be there. You have to be present. Just like any rock concert that we both worked at.
That's right.
That I think was one of the most beautiful things about Prince. Was he was one of the first people to say, let's put that phone away and actually be here tonight.
I know.
I literally just
Genius.
In November traveled to Madison Square Garden to see David Gilmour.
Okay. Whoa. Nice.
One of my heroes. I love him.
One of the greatest guitar players ever.
Absolutely.
Yeah. He's never on the top 10 list, but he should be.
And I will always say that Pink Floyd, The Division Bell, the one night I spent in Dallas, is to this moment, career-wise, that is what I'm chasing when it comes to a musical experience.
Yeah.
And just to this point in life, have I gotten to the point where it's like, Chris wants to go out again.
Yeah.
Chris wants to go to shows.
Yeah.
Like, I want to go out and I will buy a friend a ticket. I bought a friend a ticket to David Gilmour.
Nice.
I was like, you buy me some drinks, I'll buy your ticket. How about that? I just don't want to experience this by myself.
Yeah.
You enjoy him as much as I do. But the beautiful thing was when the bassist came out, Guy Pratt, about 5 minutes before they started, was like, hey, everybody. Special night of music. It's the last night of tour. Wasn't even supposed to happen. We added tonight on. Let's all put those phones away.
Yeah.
Let's be here tonight. Let's be together. This may never happen again.
That's great.
Ever. And I mean, people maybe shot a 20-second video, and it wasn't like when I went and saw Tears for Fears, and I was literally on somebody's Insta feed for 2.5 hours while they were doing that. So once again, that idea of brainwave frequency, and where are you at? Are you having the frequency of thought of presence of mind, or are you having the frequency of thought of how are people going to cajole me on social media for being here?
Right. Well, when you shift downward into the alpha, you don't care about that.
Yeah.
That's the best part. You don't care what people think because you're present here right now, and life is good.
I like the idea that you were bringing up a while ago about working the opposite way. So many times we think about things from the top down instead of from the gut up. The example I give is I had somebody who, after a show I was on, went onto my website, watched my chakra videos, loved them. She was a yogi, taught yoga, all kinds of things. And I found it hilarious when she commented, like, these are amazing, they're awesome. But I have a question. When I did the root chakra, like, I got all these hard emotions. Like, I started crying. I don't know where this came from. And I'm like, well, kind of sounds like maybe you just tilled over something in your garden when you were pulling weeds. It happens. You know, I'm not saying that you aren't grounded, but there may be something that you're kind of dealing with in the background that you may not want to openly deal with.
Yes.
You know, so I'm glad it rang your bell. And I hope you find some help and get to that point. You know, but even to hear somebody who teaches those principles on a regular basis be like, I don't know why my root chakra was getting at me, was like, wow, look at that. Like, there's somebody who teaches this principle and has lost track of the root chakra.
But she expected a different
result. And
when that didn't happen, I don't know why. This is wrong or whatever.
Oh, no. What was great was that the experience that happened was something that totally looped her and made her reconsider everything. She was like, I thought I was like founded and ready to go. And here I am like crying 10 minutes into this root chakra thing.
It's good to get humbled sometimes.
You know, so it's interesting to see that if you let that moment happen, if you consent into it, because there's somebody who, I would say at that point, your walls are definitely built, your opinions are formed. about things, but she was open to an experience in a different way, and it led her to a different place that she hadn't experienced in who knows how long.
And surrendered to it,
Yeah.
and allowed the experience to happen.
Exactly.
And now she's got a lesson that she may not understand right now, but she will.
Yeah.
Right? It'll download. And then she's got information to take on for the rest of her life.
Well, and that's exactly what we say on this show regularly about all paranormal, period, is that it is science. It is. Because science, it's right there on my book, on the cover for a reason, to remind everybody investigating paranormal that it is science from the get-go. You have observed something, and you have a question. That's step 1 and 2, man.
Yeah.
The only question now is if you bought a ticket to the train or if you're eating a Twix.
Yeah.
That's it. Like, the train left the station. Did you hop on board? Because science began whether you liked it or not.
That's right.
You know, so we have to be open to the experience, and we also have to be open to the experience of being scientific as well.
Right.
You
Well,
know,
and
both sides. The science has to be open, and the paranormal experiencer has to be open.
And keeping in mind the idea of, the science of the soul, which is what we're talking about. But the soul of science.
We just talked about the science of the soul a second ago in our last interview.
But the soul of science, too, which is the question.
That's it.
That's the soul.
That's it.
Right? And always asking the next question. Right? That's really it. So.
Well, and especially being willing to ask the next question. Because I see it from both sides of the aisle. Both people who are gathering things in the field as paranormal investigators, they don't trust science for a lick. And it's like, but you're asking scientific questions about the picture you took. So how can I can't give you a scientific explanation because you won't accept science when it's given to you. And at the same time, science is like, but that's paranormal. It doesn't fit in our box of science. And it's like, but now you have a box of science, and that's a problem.
Yeah, people are afraid that science might disprove what they think is in the picture or whatever.
Well, but and that's something that I bring up regularly is, as an investigator, I want more red circles.
Correct.
More.
Correct.
Because that's how we do science.
Yeah.
You know?
Even if it doesn't give you the result you want it to give you, publish it.
Well, and it's the fact of even as the experiencer, even if someone like us comes and you have years of audio engineering experience, same as me, it's very easy for me to hear a recording and hear what went wrong with that recording or what circumstance may have caused it. That's just 30 years of mixing audio and having the ears I have and recording things in the field. That does not subtract your experience. That doesn't subtract the experience that you had the observation on, that made you ask the question, and the question that literally shoved a crowbar into your keyhole and widened it to the size of a beer can, because that's what happens. And scientists have to be ready to question themselves. They have to be willing to look at things outside of a box. That's one of the reasons I'm a big proponent of the change to UAP from UFO. It brings science kicking and screaming because, well, if you're a chemist and you give me an equation with 5% of solution remaining, it's somewhere. Did it off-gas? Did it go to sediment? You got to show me where this anomaly is. Or just to say, well, that's an anomaly and I got no idea. Can you produce the same anomaly? That's literally the realm of science. So the fact that it's been brought in is great. But we need to be ready to meet that. We need to be ready to meet it in the middle, and science has to be ready to meet us. And it's really interesting to see now even the work of Monroe and stuff like that being looked at in a different way by science and consciousness researchers and everything else. Like the whole carrier wave of reality concept has really stepped forward, and it's really interesting to see where it's going.
Very much.
What's some of the future things that Monroe is looking at? What are some of the things that y'all are looking with burgeoning technology, things like that, before we let you go?
Well, I'll tell you. It's an interesting battle sometimes. Battle's not the right word, but it's an interesting discussion that we have at Monroe sometimes. There's new products that come out, new software. There's all kinds of new things that happen all of the time. Sometimes they're very flashy. Sometimes they're very they look really good on a screen or whatever. That doesn't mean that they're good, you know? So we're always open to everything. We're willing to do anything, but we do want to do measurements on things. Right? We do want to experience them as well, right? And so if we're having a lovely experience, then, whatever. But I say that because, I make frequencies now in a very out-of-date program that you can't even get anymore.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're the best. It's the best way to make them. In my experience.
Yeah.
In my experience. They might be better, but what I use is a soft piece of software that's not even on the market any longer.
Yeah.
Right? Because it does I'm not doing binaural beats. I'm doing the Monroe sound science work, which is really a phase modulation sort of a process. But you bring the wave over, and you got to bring it back, And so a lot of programs bring it over, but the bringing it back is the hard part. So. This is a funny analogy, and I mean this, and I say this all the time. And I think it was like Coco Chanel was right, like the woman who she would get dressed in the morning, and she'd turn around in the mirror, and the first thing that you notice, take off because it's distracting.
Yeah.
Same thing with audio exercises, right? Yeah, make it the way you want to make it. All right, now put it on, listen to it. The first thing you notice, cut
Strick it.
Take it out, right?
Yeah.
Because it's going to distract somebody else from the experience, and. Keeping it simple is not a bad thing either, right? Bells and whistles are great. They're super cool. There's a time and place for all of it. But not all the time, right? So keeping things nice and simple, but also understanding, the relationship between brainwaves, and that's very important, right?
Yeah.
And so what we're working on now is just strengthening that, right? We're getting into, years ago, we started to kind of crack the code on gamma, and how to induce gamma in the body, how to give people gamma-infused experiences, connecting them to all that is. And original days with Bob Monroe, it was all delta. He was a delta guy, It's interesting. They're right next to each other. They're very close. They're very similar. It's people think of it like a timeline. Delta's here, gamma's there. It's a color wheel.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It is.
It is. When the red and the blue get together, it forms purple. Right. So
absolutely,
that's what it is. And so now we're really playing with that. The delta gamma synchrony. Right? Which is interesting.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
Well, and I've had, as I was telling you earlier, I've had Dr. Scott Taylor on my show numerous times, and I love his work. And we've even had the private conversation of, as a musician, when you're making these frequencies, do you ever find frequencies that compete with the music that's going over them? And I'm like, yes. He's like, how do you deal with that? I'm like, I just roll, man. I just roll. Roll.
That's a good point. I'll say something real quick about that. Because you're right, binaural beats, hemisync. Especially let's just say hemisync. Hemisync is a trademarked item.
It is.
It's a recipe, right? So, for example, the Focus 10, it's like 3 signals here, 3 signals there, right? Forming binaural beats in between them. Well, those are never going to change. They are what they are. Music changes, right? And so to fit that into the piece of music and to please the musician, who has a big say on whether this hemisync goes on their track or not, they probably aren't going to like it because it takes away. You kind of have to bury it. You bury it pretty deep in the mix.
That's exactly what I told him. Is like my binaural beats are normally buried at about an 8% level under the music, so you aren't going to hear the dissonance.
They're effective, but you're not actually tuning into those. Right? We use a lot of pink noise at Monroe, so we can actually bring them up a little bit and hide them in that. But with music, you can't alter the music. No one will ever give you permission to use their piece of music if you're going to, adulterate it like that, right? The phase modulation that we do now opens us up to a whole new way. So we can take a single tone. And musical notes are frequencies, right? So we can take a single tone, single frequency, right? We can add movement to it, and it's in a faux way, but we can add movement to it as if it's a speaker that is in equal distance, right? But not panning through you, panning around equal distance on the same plane as your ears, right? And how you are meant to receive. That puts you into space at that point, which is how you naturally hear. I mean, we actually use our hearing to put us to identify. Like if you were to walk over there and I had my eyes closed, I could point to you just on how I heard you.
Oh, I can pinpoint sounds at a distance far before I see anything.
And so now that opens us up. So now that tone can be anything I want it to be. It can be a C note. I can make an E note a G note. Now I got a chord, C, E, G, right? And I can move those, 3 times a second, 3 hertz, 6 times a second, 6 hertz. 9. So I have the C's at 3, the E's moving at 6 hertz, the G's moving at 9 hertz. Now I got a 3, 6, 9, right?
Yeah.
And it's a chord in the music, and you don't notice it.
Yeah.
Right? All right. So we talked about how does this work, right? If you are a person like I am who thinks that, all right, so it's frequency, right? But is it frequency or is it vibration, right?
Exactly.
And so if it's vibration...
Because if it's frequency, then technically you would be hearing it.
Correct.
You would be hearing it.
Right.
And that's the example I give because somebody was asking me about Schumann resonance earlier. And I was like, here's my example of Schumann resonance. There's a frequency of a cat's purr you can hear and one you feel.
That's right.
When you don't hear them purring, but they're laying on you and they're purring.
Yeah.
That's 7.8.
Yeah.
That's 8 hertz.
You hear that. You feel that.
You feel that. And you feel it here.
Taking it into your body.
If you put that cat up here, you're not going to feel it.
Right.
It's funny because you were talking about that just a minute ago.
Right.
The idea of there's
Feeling.
things that happen here that don't happen here.
Absolutely. And so if it is vibration, and I'm in that camp 100%.
Same.
Because it makes sense to me, the liquid-filled, cavern of your skull.
Hey, that's just physics.
It's physics.
That's just physics.
It's physics. So if it is vibration, then I think volume would play a role, right?
Sure.
The louder you can make it, perhaps the more vibration, perhaps it's more effective, right?
Okay.
So with the new way we do things, I can crank those up. I can crank those signals up, and you don't notice it in the mix because it blends with the music, right?
Yeah.
And so now we can and if the music changes keys, well, we can change keys.
Yeah.
And we can do all that stuff.
Yeah.
We can follow it.
Especially with the phase modulation.
Exactly.
You can follow it anywhere it needs
And now
to go.
that musician doesn't care what we do,
Yeah.
right? Because they don't notice it either, right?
Yeah.
And it is enhancing in that
and
way.
I have to be very careful with people whenever I talk with them about my music, things like that, because they ask me if I use Monroe.
Yeah.
I'm like, I do not.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
I use pure tone therapy.
Sure.
So like any of my chakra stuff, you're going to get the pure tone of the chakra and the binaural beat of that tone.
Yeah.
So it's a combination of those two that I'm using.
And I'll say this real quick about HemiSync, which I'm a huge fan of.
Yeah.
I love HemiSync. Focus 10 is my favorite thing. But what I understand, the nuanced difference between what you would call binaural beats and HemiSync. HemiSync is binaural beats.
It is.
Let's just be real.
It is, but it's on steroids, and it's its own system of how those things are moving. And
absolutely, and it's very thoughtful.
Yes.
It's very curated. And when we talk about these tones and frequencies, we're talking about two things. It's kind of like outer note, inner note.
Yeah.
What you're actually hearing in the headphones. We always use the example of 100 hertz, 104 hertz, 4 hertz in the middle. So outer note, inner note.
Yeah.
It's never those, but as a great example, 100 hertz, 104. But my understanding with HemiSync versus binaural beats is there was as much thought put into the outer notes as the inner notes.
Yeah.
So those isochronic tones that you're listening to on either side are just as important as what they're trying to modulate inside of you.
Yeah.
So 100
one builds on the other.
Right.
Yeah.
And they get very into, decimal point sort of frequency range, right?
They do.
So it's not just even number things, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And that's what I try to explain to people. Like I was saying, I give the example of a sound bath or a singing bowl like what we have in the room over there is like going to the spa, like getting a massage. It's great for your muscles. It's amazing. You know what any massage therapist would tell you? You need to go to the gym and hit some core muscles.
That's right.
You need to go work on your lower back a little bit more.
That's right.
Walk in the pool. And that's what the binaural beats or HemiSync does. Is it's like training your brain instead of respond when heard, make it when needed.
That's right.
And when you marry those two, you hit something a little bit different,
right?
Because now, much like any good teacher is going to incorporate auditory learning and manual learning in the same lesson to hit everybody,
because they understand that their students are learning in different ways.
There's some people that are going to respond better to a pure tone therapy than to a binaural beat therapy.
Right.
And there's some people that will respond better to the binaural beat than the pure tone. So I'm using both of them simultaneously.
Absolutely.
You guys are using both of them simultaneously in a uber way.
Right. And then, of course, the term Monroe Sound Science is a blanket umbrella term to include whatever we want it to include. Right?
Sure.
So binaural beats are still in there. Right? right?
Yeah.
The phase modulation we talked is still in there.
Yeah.
Isochronics are still in there.
Absolutely.
Right? So we use all sorts of different techniques. You know, there's some guys that get really into the Dolby Atmos stuff, the 3D spatial stuff. They find a lot of value in that. So we're really doing a lot of things.
I can get that.
Yeah.
I can get that. And much like the conference that we are physically sitting at right now, there are no less than 2 handfuls of modality of remote viewing.
Yeah.
The really good remote viewers use a toolbox.
Yeah.
You know, and it's one of those, if your only tool is a hammer, everything's going to look like a nail.
Yeah.
But don't forget, a finishing carpenter does not use a framing hammer to do his job.
That's right.
It's a totally different tool that is worked the same way. You know, so there are different tools, there are different ways to hit these things.
Absolutely.
And there are beautiful, amazing modalities with the Monroe Institute and the work that you guys do that are, I will always say, forever and always, worlds beyond what I do and provide. Worlds beyond.
Well, thank you for saying that. But all right, so I think I say this to Monroe all the time, right? So I'm the king of bad analogies, right? So I'm going to give you a really bad one right now. All right, so consciousness as a bicycle tire, right? All right, so the tire's out here, right? This is the all-knowing. This is the answer. We all want to get to there, right? But we're here in the center, right? We're at the axle, and all these spokes get you out there, right? There's all these spokes that lead out to the answer. Monroe's just one of them. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. There are many. The plant medicine we talked about potentially get you out there. You know, silence can get you out there. A forest walk can get you out there.
Yep.
You know, communing with nature.
Yeah.
There are many things that are out there. So, you know, I say that a lot because if anybody at Monroe or if anybody in general, you know, this is the only answer.
Well,
run.
Yes, exactly. Like we said, that snake oil. Get out of there.
And go find out for yourself.
Exactly. I want to thank you so much for your time today, for your open.
Thank you, man.
Mind on these questions, because I hijack some people sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm not a prepared question person. I like an organic conversation, and this has really gone some places. And I think really explained to a lot of people out there that may be familiar with the concept of binaural beats, really where the OGs came from and where it all came from and where it all sourced from is Monroe. So let everybody out there know where they can go to find out more about Monroe Institute, where they can go to get involved, where they can go to find therapies and other modalities that you guys provide.
Yeah, absolutely. So monroeinstitute.org is our website. From there, you can find our app, the Expand app. It's very useful.
Yeah.
There's a lot of free meditations on the Expand app. We have a really nice YouTube channel as well with lots of free meditations on there. And of course, the Instagram, social media stuff. I mean, we're always posting things there as well. But we do offer, coursework at Monroe Residential. We do coursework online, so some of it's virtual with an actual trainer online at the comfort of your own home.
Oh, cool.
Or there could be, like online programs at your own pace. So we do that, for people's busy schedules or their different financial needs or whatever it is.
Absolutely.
We do have scholarships at Monroe as well. So if people are interested in taking a gateway program but can't afford it, they're of course happy to fill out an application for a scholarship. We have a committee that reviews that, and we approve a lot of them. So we love doing it. In fact, we do things like a gateway experience, which is our entry-level program, exclusively for like vets and first responders who really aren't comfortable opening up around regular civilians, right? Or they won't think that regular civilians will understand the trauma, the turmoil, the stress that they have. But together, it's a very safe space.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we do that 2 or 3 times a year.
Beautiful. Well, once again, thank you for everything that you do. Thank you for everything Monroe does. One last time, let everybody know where they can go to find courses, everything else.
The best place is online at our website, www.monroeinstitute.org, O-R-G.
Fantastic. Yeah. Jason, thank you so much for your time.
Appreciate
it's great sharing space with you. While you are online, checking out everything from Jason and the Monroe Institute, folks, stop on by Curious Realm. CuriousRealm.com is where you can like, follow, subscribe. That is where you can find the YouTube channels of all of our guests. We will make sure to add the Monroe Institute channel on there so all of our subscribers can find it in an easy fashion.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Please stay tuned through this quick commercial break. We will be right back with our continuing coverage of PsiGames 2025 right here in Charlottesville, We'll be back right after this.
The key to good science is good research. At the heart of good research is a good data set. With the field observation and encounter log from Curious Research, you can easily keep track of your investigative information all in one place, making it easier to review cases and readily see comparisons and contrasts between them. Whether out in the woods squatching, in a back room gathering EVPs, or using high-tech gear to track UFO, UAP activity, this easy-to-carry, pocket-sized scientific data log is the perfect companion for any field researcher. You can find your copy of the Curious Research Field Observation and Encounter Log at Amazon.com or visit the official Curious Realm store at curiousrealm.com/store to reserve your copy for yourself, your family, or a mind that you want to open. That website again is curiousrealm.com/store.